All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is Jared with Self Liquid. So the day I've been kind of talking about, you know, to exhaustion is Netflix earnings this afternoon. So got just about 23 minutes left in the session, and you can see that the market seems to be kind of prepping itself, if you will, for Netflix's earnings. So you've seen a spike in the VIX there just moments ago. So let me pull that up if I can type it in correctly. So you can see, it's starting to kind of come up right now. Now this is just a 5-minute chart, so nothing too serious, but you can see really this pattern here. It had this blow off this morning, or excuse me, back here this morning. It really just kind of sold off the rest of the day. It looks like it tried, to get something going around, I guess that was 155. I don't know if my Thinkorswim is set in Central Time, so I just recently moved to Colorado. But anyway, so I think we are going to see the VIX finally start to pick up some steam here. With Netflix's earnings. I think it's totally a roll of the dice here. It was pretty interesting with them raising prices just a couple days ago. It's funny, my girlfriend and I were just talking about that the other day, where I think it's been underpriced for a long time. For whatever it is, like $11, I think is what I pay for just streaming, and now it's going to go to like 13 or something like that. So, from a percent basis, what is that, like a 13 or something percent increase? I mean, not a huge deal though in reality. I mean, just a couple of bucks. And I think most people are going to be okay with that. There was somewhat of a backlash the last time that they did this, and I think they've now raised prices like 3 or 4 times. But to me, it's just one of those things where, I think it's warranted. I don't necessarily blame them for doing what they're doing. I mean, Netflix, I think that's their issue is they have just a ton of debt and have probably been underpriced for a long time. But that is something to really think about is if they're raising prices, much like we saw with Apple, it's because they're anticipating a slowdown in subscribers. So, depending on what actually they say during the call, that always plays some role um, in, the direction. Now, I kind of believe that when this stuff comes out, it's like to an extent, a lot of the move is baked in already. So if that's the case, is that why we were rallying so much with Netflix? Is because people, they already knew that there was going to be a price increase, and I don't know. I think it's somewhat of a crapshoot. And I've talked about this already, that I'm positioned short in Netflix, just selling, premium in Netflix. And like I said, going into the close, just kind of sitting where we are. Let me go and pull that back up. So we're really just kind of in this level I talked about on Friday. I said I thought this is where we could be headed. It just seemed like the perfect area to kind of consolidate before they announce. And there's two pretty, I think, obvious areas to where price could be going. So 380, that's basically the expected move. And below that, I mean, there's actually a few areas. I think to the downside is where it really just it gets interesting because right now the expected move is 30 points in Netflix, and I just think to the upside, definitely 380 is the move. But to the downside, I think you could see something bigger. I mean, so a bigger than expected move. Um, Everyone's been overly bullish, I think. I think that goes without saying. Just the fact that Netflix, I mean, just look at the chart. This is a daily chart. So it's gone from the low on the 26th of, where the hell did it go? 231.23 to, yeah, 358.85. I mean, just a huge ass move in Netflix. And, uh, I mean, like I said, this has been really a bounce. I mean, you can kind of say, okay, well, with a move of this magnitude, going from 423 to uh, whatever I said the low was there, 231, it just got cut in half basically. So I think, you know, this kind of move in Netflix is not out of the ordinary. You know, I've heard people call Netflix the Widowmaker, just especially around earnings. I mean, this is a stock that it moves big. I mean, there's a lot of blue chip stocks out there that, you know, and that may be a really a true sign of a chip stock is that, you know, it doesn't have those crazy volatile moves like that. But Netflix has always been one that there's a ton of speculation on. It's been sort of a Wall Street and kind of hedge fund sweetheart for a long time. It's been, you know, just kind of traded like crazy, and this thing will have. I mean, today we are going to see one of those types of moves here in Netflix, and I think it's always a fun one to watch at earnings. You know, it is kind of crazy to watch that kind of money move around so quickly and shift hands. You know, with the whatever this will be, a 30-point move. I mean, that's a you know, we're talking, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars here. So I think should be a pretty interesting afternoon. Now, you know, this really leads up to kind of the next big one, which I believe Facebook is coming up next. Let me just double check that. So that is a nice thing on Thinkorswim is you can have that where it kind of tells you, you know, these little symbols down here. So it's on the 30th, so uh, just a little less than 2 weeks away. And that's something to at least kind of look at. So um, let's just take a look here. You know, in those options, yeah, you can see the vol has already started to increase pretty significantly on those. Wow, there's a shitload of calls uh, on on Facebook. So there's like less than half the number of puts to calls. Now, the one thing to pay attention to is I'm looking at the today's option statistics. Let me just pull that over real quick and I'll show you. So you can see, you know, it shows you both puts and calls, but it doesn't show you. I don't, you know, I have to imagine they know that data, but you know, it'd be great if you could get that data. But anyway, so what I'm getting at is you don't know if they're selling that or buying it. And the fact that, uh, you know, volatility is so low right now, um, makes me think they're probably buying calls on Facebook with, you know, the vol is still relatively low. Facebook is one that it really kind of, you know, so going back all the way to July, that's, you know, look at this. This is an earnings announcement in Facebook. And really since then, I mean, these are weekly candles here. So just for weeks, it has been just getting straight hammered. And to me, Facebook, you can see sort of like 160 aligning pretty nicely with the 34 EMA. So to me, you know, Facebook is one that I definitely think we could see, um, you know, a bigger move, you know, kind of going into the next few weeks with its earnings. And just generally speaking, you know, I know the activity in the markets is not what I would call normal by any means. But in a normal type environment, you can expect, you know, especially we'll just say we're bullish Facebook here, that vol is going to continue to increase the closer and closer you get to earnings. And that makes me want to kind of do something like selling or buying a vertical spread. So I think I'm going to do that here in Facebook, getting a little bit closer to the close. You know, the vol adjusts pretty crazy there towards the end of the day. And I've noticed that you can kind of end up on the wrong side of things in the way you know, the current market is traded. So there is this short-term squeeze, 39-minute squeeze, um, you know, right here on Facebook. So I'm just kind of looking across the chart. So looking at this, you know, let's just take a look at the 195. Oops, I did not want to do that. I mean, Facebook right now looks like it's setting up for a move to about 155. Yeah, and that puts us right at the top of the range, um, here on the daily chart. So I've talked about this before, but if you're just now kind of joining us, I look at a 34 period moving average and then this yellow and purple band. It's one standard deviation, two standard deviations, or one and a half standard deviation and two standard deviations, excuse me. Um, so I just look at that as, we are at overhead resistance. We're at let's see here, what is it at currently? 147.97. So we're above 100% move of this. So as long as it, hangs out above 147.19, that, to me, bodes well for higher prices. So, look, there's a lot of overhead resistance right here in Facebook. And to try to recover some of just that beat down it's taken, I mean, a move to something like 155, that gets it just to the bottom part of back in April of last year. So the market, last year kind of sold off pretty hard and then rallied, or most of the market did at least, into about October, November, and that's where things kind of fell apart. Where Facebook started a little bit earlier than the rest of the market, and this was mixed with just bad news and scandals, and I think there were data breaches, all sorts of just bad shit happened with Facebook. So let's take a look back at the VIX again. I just want to see what it's doing. Oops. So let's see here. VIX is falling off still. So, volatility is dropping pretty rapidly here. And I mean, you could probably say that some of that is, once again, just kind of baked into Netflix, and um we should see, I mean, just let's take a look at Netflix options again real quick. So right now the vol is just crazy. So the implied volatility is 152% on Netflix right now, and let's see, in the following week it's, so next week it's 82. It's gone up something like 60% since Friday of last week. So I was talking about this just moments ago with Facebook. So as you can tell, I mean, Netflix is a big one. It tends to have, these roller coaster type moves, and Facebook will as well. I mean, most of the tech stocks you're going to see anything from 5% and up. I mean, below that is just really unheard of, and I would say definitely unheard of in the current kind of environment. So just about 10 minutes left, and like I said, I'm just considering kind of nibbling here on Facebook, doing something like a vertical spread, buying a vertical, so also called a call debit spread. So the way that that works is you're bullish, on the trade, you're buying a call. You can do anything like, I like to do at the money or slightly in the money, and then selling basically to where, so it's somewhat of a finesse type trade where, and most of trading is finesse and timing, but what you're looking for is, let's just pull Facebook up here. So with the IV so crazy, um, if we are bullish, this is a directional way to play it. So you can play things obviously bearish, bullish, and neutral. I don't really particularly like doing neutral trades. You can do stuff like iron condors and things like that. But I've just noticed, and I know a lot of people that, trade, and I know some people that are really successful doing iron condors and things like that, and more neutral type strategies and just premium collecting strategies. But something I've noticed is that just you'll have 10 winners in a row and your 11th trade is a loser. I mean, it'll wipe out, 80% of your winners. And so it's just a style of trading that I don't particularly like doing. I see a lot of people boasting these super high win rates, but then if you look at sort of just their, um, actual kind of what they're winning or, making versus losing on some of those trades, that just typically kind of have those, um, iron condor type shops go. And I don't, nothing bad about iron condors. I'll do them myself. It's just typically how you kind of structure them. I like to kind of leg into iron condors, especially, in a sideways market. That's a good thing to do is, if something's been trading in a channel or something like that, you can sell on the way up calls, and then as it comes back down, you can, sell puts or vice versa. So anyway, let's just go ahead and let me just look here at Facebook. Like I said, what I'm wanting to do, and I'll be very honest, Facebook and I have not just got along. Um, of pretty much all the FANG stocks this year, I think, or well, last year, I suppose. I made money trading, and Facebook is the only one that I just never quite got timing right. So with that said, if you're watching this, maybe take the opposite side of me. But um, anyway, what I'm looking at here is possibly getting long Facebook going into earnings, simply because it has, kind of sky overhead where, kind of just in a relation to how far it's fallen, I believe it's got higher prices ahead. So with that said, I'm going to go and do that. So let's see what we want to do. So everything is already kind of overpriced. Just looking at kind of what options, but I'm looking at the February 1st option, so that's the week that they announce earnings. And actually, what day did I say? It was the 30th, so it's a Wednesday. So that works out pretty nicely. I mean, it's nice when you have earnings, before Friday. There's just a few other days for things to play out, but let's go ahead and do the 147. 155. Let's see what kind of credit that gives us. Okay, not bad. So, that's not too bad of a way to do this. So, basically risking 356 to make 444 per contract. So I'm going to go ahead and submit an order for that. Alright, so I got filled on that position. So basically, just kind of pull this up, I'll kind of show you. It's a, depending on how this acts, it may be a very short-term kind of trade here. And it is a fixed risk, fixed profit type trade. So, um, it's basically the difference between the spread here in the call that you bought and the call that you sold. And, in an ideal type scenario, we obviously just get a move up here in Facebook just shy of 155. So it's not something I'm going to stay in too long term. If this thing explodes higher, um, we'll just see, I suppose. But a lot of this too is just playing the premium increase the closer we get to earnings. And, this trade will have, 15 days before expiration. So we'll see how this plays out. Like I said, Facebook is one that really long term, and I want to make that clear, is long term, I'm still short Facebook. Um, just from, my overall outlook. So I would say with earnings coming up, we could see something crazy like this where you get to move all the way into like 165. So let me just kind of do some math here. So they're expecting between now and then 16, yeah, so like 18 to 20 points in Facebook. So that would put us at, yeah, so somewhere kind of in this zone if we do get a bullish type move. I mean, right into basically the 34. So I may do something. Let me just look at what doing this slightly different. I probably could have sold one a little further uh, out of the money. Now the problem is that the closer we get, the value of these calls, at least the one that I sold. So what I may do is the closer we get, just depending on how they're acting. I mean, that's kind of the beauty is that if you get closer and you're just selling calls, the premium is just so outrageous on the out of the money ones. Um, and they end up becoming worthless just because you don't, people they'll price them so far out that even with a big move, they're either flat or, down. It's just a kind of a nasty, a nasty sort of trick for people that are just getting started. Maybe not a trick, but a nasty reality, or that I guess you learn the hard way. So just 2 minutes left here, and um, let's see how this thing is going to act. And we'll pull it up on a really short time frame. Let's take a look here. I wonder, I don't know if it comes out right after the bell, or if it'll be something where it's at like 3:30, 4:30, whatever time zone you're in. So there's the bell, and let me turn on extended session here. Well, just out the gate, there's some selling, but these things will act crazy. You'll see, you know, massive whipsaw. I mean, this thing could double both directions. Yep, there we go. So it really is just kind of a tug of war battle to see who eventually, kind of gets their way. So we've seen from there, we've seen 10 and about, oop, oop, there it goes. Nope, 336. So there was our expected move basically. Which way is it gonna go? If you're watching this and have been listening, you're obviously probably aware I'm rooting for this thing to just hang out below that pink line there. So I don't know if there's actually been an announcement just yet. Let me pull up on another window here. So I don't know if any news has come out just yet. So you can see it's fighting back a bit. This kind of action is just crazy, you know. I mean, it really is just sort of a tug of war battle between, ultimately pretty big money, uh, whether a funds decides it's time to get back in and how much they want to risk, and everyone else selling or putting pressure on this thing. So, I talked about this a little bit before, and I think this is what got them in trouble, last time around, is that they just, are still debt heavy, and with so much new competition kind of entering the market. The big question I think I have is, with this price increase, is this because they're anticipating slower customer growth? Um, I would have to imagine the answer is probably yes. So still seeing a little bit more selling, but haven't made a new low since the 333.37. And I'm trying to find if there's actually any type of live stream of it here. I think there may be one actually. Hmm. Yeah, don't see anything. Well, I mean, right now, the market, at least thus far. Now, don't I wouldn't hold my breath just yet if you're bearish, just because I've seen this too often where you'll see a move crazy down like this, and then by the morning it's either flat to up. And I'm not necessarily rooting for that. I'm obviously rooting for the other. And right now, uh, yeah, it looks like it's trying to get back. But right now, I mean, it's down about 10 points or so, 9 points from or actually 11 points from where the market closed just a few minutes ago, just 4 minutes ago. And I haven't seen actually if the call is live yet. Yeah, here we go. It's an interesting photo for their investor events. Let's see. Have not found the live stream yet, but quarterly earnings. So, as I mentioned just seconds ago, you can see it's now making its way back up after dropping as low as 333. It is now at 349.87. Okay, so I think I found a live. So, okay, so here are the results. So it looks like revenue of 4.19 billion, slightly misses, 4.21 consensus. Earnings per share, 30 cent, beats a 24-cent consensus. So kind of mixed results there. Um, and honestly, I mean, most of this kind of shit doesn't really, I mean, it does matter, But in, the current reality that we're in, it doesn't matter. I talked about this in length where, you could quadruple whatever the estimations are and the stock could get hammered sometimes. I mean, it's kind of bullshit that that's how it works, but it really is. I mean, it's just rare, especially if a stock becomes sort of popular. I think that's a good and a bad thing for a stock where, Tesla is a good example of that. All the FANG stocks are good examples of that. It's just, um, you know, basically irrationality takes over. And, the stock kind of moves that way, can kind of do anything. So, um, really, there's not much more than really, that's kind of what I've found thus far. I haven't found any kind of a live stream or anything. But just, I think, as I just mentioned, the numbers itself don't really matter. But right now, it's still down from where it closed, and not by much. And it was expecting, like I said, a 30-point move, and at this point, we're just at 10. So we'll see here if Netflix can get it together, or if this thing is really, if that was it for it. If this was, in fact, let's just pull back up from a daily perspective. So, from a daily perspective, this all aligned pretty cleanly for this being, the end of the move. And, maybe it's just a temporary kind of pullback, but right now we're trading at, come on, 341. So, I mean, barely scratching the surface of where, it's been in just a couple days. So, I mean, we're right on top of where it was on Monday? No, Friday. So, I would look at this as not bad if you're long Netflix. I mean, depending on from time frame, and if you're using stocks or options, it's just not quite as drastic as, at least yet, as the expected move was sort of indicating it would be. So now this pattern that's sort of developing here on the 1 minute, given it's a 1 minute, it's hard to give it a lot of credibility, is sort of a bearish pattern. So what you'd expect is it's building this wedge here, and then it would break, or it would, break higher, as I'm saying that. So uh, I don't know. I mean, this will probably chop around for a while. You just never really know. I've seen it, like I said, countless times where the initial move is one direction, and by the morning it's flattened out or, completely switched. So I think that's about it for today, guys. I appreciate you joining me this afternoon. Hope you're enjoying these sessions. If you are, please subscribe. It definitely is, motivates me to keep coming back. And yeah, that's what I've got for today. So take care, and I will talk to you soon.